Carlos Queiroz, the fiery but calculated Portuguese manager with a long, successful career spanning over 30 years and just about every level of football. But what does that football look like? Well, that depends on which team he's coaching, who he's coaching against, and what he wants out of the match. Some coaches are known to only be defensive. Others only seem to know how to coordinate an attack. Managers that lean so heavily one way or the other rarely achieve success past a certain level, and their approach has a shorter shelf life due to the inability to adjust. Queiroz's longevity, earning 100 more wins than losses in his career, can be attributed in part to his strong personality and tactical versatility. Though Queiroz usually wants to secure his defense before building an attack, he is, for all intents and purposes, a balanced manager. That is to say, if his squad is superior to yours, he'll attack it. If yours has the quality, he'll aggressively defend against it. No matter how he goes about it, there are two constants with Queiroz's teams. They always begin in a four-man backline, and they are always combative. He's deployed his squads in a variety of formations, from every variation of 4-5-1 you can think of, to 4-4-2, etc. But his preferred setup is 4-3-3. Not the exact 4-3-3 he introduced at Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson, but one that's evolved to emphasize more wing play. Again, his approach will depend heavily on the personnel he has to work with, and as we know, there are plenty of ways to line up in a 4-3-3. My guess is that Queiroz's plan with Egypt is most likely to resemble what he did with Iran. It's a 4-3-3, but typically with a single, deep-lying pivot that actually resembles the libero position that famed Egyptian managers Mahmoud al-Gohri and Hassan Shahata loved and used successfully with 3- and 5-man backlines. The wing forwards often sit so deep that they're on the same line as the center forward. The two center mids in front of them tend to veer centrally, and the wingers will retreat as far as the midfield stripe to assist in defending, taking up a 4-1-4-1 when the opposition is in possession in the middle third. At that point, the team is aggressive in trying to win the ball back, as opposed to, say, Egypt under Hector Cooper, who preferred a more conservative approach and was happy to cede possession and keep his blocks very low. The fullbacks get in on the action as well, trying to prevent attacks down the flank before the opposition can get in good position to cross the ball. Queiroz's teams will often press high up the pitch, trying to force errors in vulnerable positions. Against teams that are more skilled with build-ups and that can decimate a high press, Queiroz will cede that territory and make midfield the line of engagement instead. At its most aggressive, the Queiroz defense aims to win the ball high. At its most conservative, it still aims to prevent forward play further up the pitch. Both approaches signal a more aggressive, combative mentality than what the typical manager that's deemed defensive-minded prefers. In attack, Queiroz wants to break quickly to the wingers, often set up deep into the corners where they can choose to take fullbacks on one-on-one, cross into the box, or take advantage of the spaces created and vacated by their movement, namely to the center forward or an oncoming center mid. And when he has a star player, Queiroz knows it and will try to play through him. With Iran, that was left winger Ali Reza Jahanbakhsh. With Egypt, that of course is supposed to flip to the right side and winger Mohamed Salah. Queiroz is also no stranger to deploying a center forward as a wing forward if that player has the requisite skill set and adequate speed. That player will then drift to and from both positions depending on the situation. For example, a guy like Mohamed Sharif could well be asked to man left wing forward. With attacks running through Salah on the right, Sharif would then veer inside to accompany a guy like Mustafa Mohamed, giving the Pharaohs two center forwards when deep in the final quarter of the pitch. Salah may then take on the defender, take advantage of help from the right center mid, keep the ball on the ground and play his center forwards, or cross it. When attacking through one side, Queiroz also likes to send the opposite center mid up to support, creating a sort of lopsided 4-2-4. His plans and deployments will of course vary, but I think Queiroz is going to work to make this Egypt's default setup for most matches. So, which players might he pick that fit what he's trying to accomplish? Queiroz is not afraid of injecting new blood into a veteran unit, and I think he may do just that with Egypt. He'll probably stick with Shenawi in goal and the center-back pairing of Ahmed Hijazi and Mahmoud al-Winch. On the left, Ahmed Fattouh and Akram Tawfiq on the right, only because Queiroz may prefer a single dedicated defensive midfielder, which would probably mean Mohamed al-Ninni. Akram Tawfiq is more than capable of manning that role as well, should Queiroz choose to deploy al-Ninni as one of the two center mids instead. And central midfield is where we may begin to see some new faces. I think Imam Ashur is a candidate. It also wouldn't surprise me to see Afsha deployed more centrally instead of just a dedicated playmaker behind a forward. Salah on the right whenever available. And with Trezeguet injured, I wouldn't be surprised to see Mohamed Sharif at left wing forward as mentioned, especially with the way Queiroz likes to turn one of his wing forwards into a second center forward in attack. In the middle, I'm expecting a preference for a forward that is dangerous in the air, based on Queiroz's history, and that would mean Mustafa Mohamed. I'm also expecting the underutilized Ahmed Hassan Kuka to get more opportunities under this new regime, probably as the first option off the bench in this setup. So we've listed 13 players here, including alternatives, but what other 10 players could round out a squad of 23 for Queiroz? We may see new reserve keepers called up, but let's stick with Abu Gabal and Al-Hani Suleiman for this video. Ali Gabr and perhaps Osama Galal as reserve center backs, Muhammad Hani and maybe Abdullah Guma as reserve fullbacks. I wouldn't be surprised if he wants to take a look at much more than just 23 at a training camp, where guys of all positions like Karim Al-Arai, Ibrahim Adil, Nasser Maher, or Nabil Ahmad Donga might get their shot. Tariq Hamid may be a starter, but I think he's safely in the squad either way, and look for fresh faces like Ammar Hamdi to compete for a spot alongside mainstay Hamdi Fethi. We've already mentioned most of the guys that may take up the squad up front. Maybe add Ramadan Subhi to that. And if Trezeguet's extended absence remains, maybe Salah Mohsen makes the squad as well. Guys like Zizou may be called up, and I do think his physical traits fit what Queiroz looks for, but I don't expect to see players like Hussein Shahat back, especially once Queiroz gets a feel for Egypt's domestic scene and doesn't have to rely on as much input from his assistants. But managing is so much more than formations and tactics. It's more than squad selection. One of the things that makes Queiroz a quality football coach is the way he trains his teams. Whether it's his emphasis on set pieces, which he takes very seriously, or the high-tempo passing movement drill you see here, one of Queiroz's favorites, or teaching his teams how and where to move off the ball to always keep passing lanes open. It's these things, along with leadership and strength of character that, if given time and support, will define Carlos Queiroz's tenure with the Pharaohs.